7th century was an interesting period in Indian history. With the decline of Gupta Empire, a number of kingdoms had started shaking off the Gupta yoke and setting up independent empires. One such dynasty was the Pushyabhuti or Verdant dynasty of Thanisvar or modern-day Thaneswar, which at its zenith covered most of the North India extending from Malwa in the west to Kamrup in the east. Their southern frontier was cordoned off along the Narmada by the great Pulakesi II of Chalukya dynasty. The fourth ruler of the Verdant dynasty, Prabhakar Verdant, was the first influential ruler of this dynasty. He married off his daughter Rajyasri to the Maukari ruler of Kannauj, Gravarman, and hence was in alliance with the Maukaris. Maukaris were one of the many powers of northern India that flourished during the post-Gupta period, such as Gaudas, Pushyabhutis, later Guptas and Baumanarakas. Due to this alliance with Pushyabhutis, Maukaris were also freed from any danger from the side of the later Guptas, since Mahasenagupta was the maternal uncle of Prabhakar Verdant. The king of Malva, Devagupta, was the hereditary enemy of the Maukaris and by extension turned hostile towards the Pushyabhutis for their alliance with Kannauj. He formed an alliance with Sasanka, the ruler of Gauda, around modern-day Bengal, to defeat the Maukaris. Gaudas were the Maukaris' enemies to the east, and the struggle between them began about the middle of the 6th century AD, probably for the occupation of Bihar, when both of them had just succeeded in shaking off the Gupta yoke. Sasanka occupies a prominent place in the history of Bengal. He was the first known king of Bengal who extended his suzerainty over territories far beyond the geographical boundary of that province. Sasanka began his life as a subordinate ruler, probably under the Guptas. Sometime around 600 AD, he became the king of Gauda with his capital at Karnasavarna. He added Dandabhukti and Atkala, modern-day Orissa, to his dominions around 603 AD. The fatal illness of Prabhakar Verdant gave the required opportunity to the allies. Devagupta defeated and killed Gravarman and imprisoned his queen Rajyasri at Kannauj. His next move was an invasion of Thaneswar itself. As soon as this news reached Thaneswar, Rajyavardhan, who had just ascended the throne after his father's death, marched against Devagupta with a hastily collected army of 10,000 cavalry, leaving his younger brother Harshvardhan in charge of the kingdom. Rajyavardhan defeated the Malva king and captured a large part of his army, but before he could relieve Kannauj or even establish any contact with his sister Rajyasri, the widowed captive Maukari queen, he was himself killed by Sasanka. As per Banabhutta, Harshvardhan's court historian, and Huan Tsang, the famous Chinese Buddhist traveler who traveled throughout India during this period, Sasanka killed Rajyavardhan by treachery. Although the accounts of both of them differ on the details, but infer that Sasanka invited Rajyavardhan to his camp on the pretext of an alliance or marriage with his daughter and killed him. Harshvardhan's own inscriptions tell us that Rajyavardhan met with his death in the house of his enemy owing to his adherence to a promise. The charges of Bana and Huan Tsang against Sasanka must be accepted with a great deal of reserve. Both were prejudiced against him on account of his hostility against their patron, Harshvardhan, and Huan Tsang made no secret of his wrath against Sasanka for his anti-Buddhist activities. Unfortunately, such instances are not rare. Contradictory versions of the encounter between Shivaji and Afzal well illustrate the unwillingness or incapacity of hostile writers to give impartial account of dreaded foes, and that episode furnishes an apt parallel to the Sasanka-Rajyavardhan incident. Sasanka next attacked the Maukari kingdom. The chaos brought on by the invasion enabled Rajyasri to escape from prison and leave Kannauj. The death of Rajyavardhan left Sasanka the master of the situation. But he was prudent enough not to push his successes too far. His main objective was accomplished by the complete discomfiture of the Maukaris, and his aggressive campaign in the west was at an end. As soon as the news of the death of Rajyavardhan reached Harshvardhan, he took a solemn vow to punish Sasanka and marched with a vast army for taking vengeance upon the king of Gauda. On his way he met the messenger of Bhaskar Verman, king of Kamrup, and concluded an alliance with him, presumably against a common enemy, Sasanka. Proceeding still further, he He met Bandi, his maternal cousin, who told him about the details of Rajavardhan's murder and of the escape of his sister Rajyasri from the prison. Harsha thought it to be his first duty to find out his sister, and leaving the army in charge of Bandi, he went out in search of her. After a great deal of difficulty, he traced her in the Vindhya forest, just in time to save her from an act of self-immolation in fire along with her companions. In the meantime, Bandi proceeded with the army against the Gauda king, and Harsha himself joined it on the bank of the Ganges after rescuing his sister. And this right here is the anticlimactic end of the story. Trust Bana to leave out details of the unsuccessful campaigns of his patron. He brings his narrative to a close at this critical point, leaving us totally in the dark about the encounter between Harsha and Sasanka. Of the further progress of Harsha's army and the development of his everlasting friendship with Bhaskar Verman of Kamrup, we possess no definite information, nor are the results of Harsha's diplomatic and military preparations reported by either Bana or Hayuant Sang. Hayuant Sang tells us that proceeding eastwards with his army, Harsha invaded the states which had refused allegiance and waged incessant warfare for 6 years, but we can infer that he could not achieve any conspicuous success so far, at least as Sasanka was concerned, as the latter was in possession of Gauda, Magad, Itkala, and Kangota long after 612 AD. Beginning his life as a vassal chief, Sasanka made himself master of Gauda, Magad, Itkala, and Kangota, and consolidated his position by defeating the powerful Maukaris. Although this involved him being in hostility with two of the most powerful potentates in northern India, that is, the kings of Thaneswar and Kamrup, he held his own against this powerful combination and maintained his extensive dominions till his death. Although sufficient data is not available for forming a correct estimate of the character and achievements of Sasanka, he must be regarded as a great king and a remarkable personality during the first half of the 7th century. He was the first historical ruler of Bengal who not only dreamt imperial dreams but also succeeded in realizing them. He laid the foundations of the imperial fabric in the shape of realized hopes and ideals on which the Pallas built at a later age. He successfully avenged the humiliation inflicted upon his country by the Maukari rulers and gave a new turn to that age-long duel between Gauda and Kannauj, which constitutes an important feature in North Indian politics for more than 500 years. With friendly biographers like Bana and Hayuant Sang, he would probably have appeared almost as brilliant as Harshvardhan to posterity. Not enough can be said about Harsha, who most of us know was one of the most successful ruler in Indian history. He is seen as the personification of the idea of the perfect ruler and was a man of many talents. He is widely believed to be the author of 3 Sanskrit plays, Ratnavali, Nagnanda and Priyadarsika. Although initially a Saivite, sometime later in his life, he converted to Buddhism and patronized Buddhist monks from all over, including Hayuant Sang. He ruled for almost 4 decades and enjoyed suzerainty over one of the largest empires in the history of India. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe to the channel to support us. Until next time.